Hello there, my name is Jake Riley, and today I am going to be showing off the single-player map that I developed for Quake called Hateforge Manor. Inspired by Lovecraftian elements, I wanted this map to reflect the classic Haunted Mansion theme. As a result, the walls are covered in portraits. What you are seeing right now is one of the elements that I am most proud of for this map, that being the final encounter room called the Undercroft. How the player gets to this point is through picking up the gold key in the bedroom segment and heading to the bookcase in the ballroom. The player knows that this is what they need to do based on the secret door hidden in the study. In opening the bookcase door, they are greeted by a small stairwell that leads down into a green lit room full of 5 monsters, that being 2 wizards and 3 knights. Originally, I had 8 enemies all in that room at once. Some of the feedback that I got from playtesting this map was to potentially stagger the enemies in the area so that the player isn't overwhelmed when they are inside. As a result, I looked into how I could stagger the enemies out. I learned in that process that I could have 2 trigger counters, one to spawn in more enemies, and one to open the gate when all of the enemies are dead. As a result, the second wave of enemies spawns in once the enemies in the room are killed. Based on some feedback that I got during the testing phase, the gray box in this area was just a bunch of columns and portals. My tester recommended that if the goal was to make this room feel like a final encounter full of enemies, then I should add more cover besides columns. I took that feedback to heart and added the walls of flesh, made out of the sacrifices to the dark gods that the Hateforge family had created. With the theme of this room being a ritual place, I decided to add something to make it feel more cult-like, and to make the room feel less empty. As a result, I added this stairwell with ammo and health pickups to add some verticality and some additional choices that the player can make. As a result, it makes the room feel less like a box. The player can dip and dive between the fleshy cover on the floor, then run up to the upper level to grab up the health and ammo on the platform, then take out the enemies below. The player spawns in the front foyer of the mansion. One of the things that I knew I needed to include with this map was the dual staircase and chandelier. Both of these things exude the essence of an old haunted manor, and also harken back to classic horror titles such as the original Resident Evil. One of the things that my playtesters remarked on when I introduced the textured version of the map to them was their instinct to shoot the clock at the start. As a result, I decided to use that as a means to teach them about the manor and its secrets. In shooting the clock, this opens a secret door which reveals to the player a piece of armor. On top of that, if they choose to pick up the armor, a wizard, the ranged enemy in the map, will spawn in. Should the player choose to pick up the armor, this is the first time that they are introduced to the wizard. The space is a lot more open here, which allows the player to be more mobile in order to avoid the wizard's attacks. Once the wizard is killed, there's one more hidden secret in this room that the player can hunt for. Something that I was made aware of by one of my playtesters was their instinct to shoot the paintings to see if something will happen. As a result, I decided to reward the players who did choose to shoot the paintings. Shooting all 4 paintings in the foyer will reveal a hidden room on the upper level which houses the Tesla gun and several energy cells. Since I had balanced the map to accommodate for the shotgun and super nail gun already, I chose to make the ammo for the weapon limited, informing the player that they don't have a lot of this, and should use it sparingly. There are 2 doors in the foyer, one leading to the ballroom and another leading to the dining room. Since the other door is locked and requires a key that the player doesn't have yet, the player will hunt for a key that matches. The dining room door opens, and the identifiable landmark is the furniture with 10 chairs around a long table. Something that had made this room a bit of a challenge to make was that I wanted to introduce the Swarmer enemy in here. However, the problem with introducing an enemy in a room like this is that because it is open, the player will just funnel the enemy down a hallway. As a result, I decided to create a hidden wall to hide the enemy, adding to the theme of the haunted mansion and reinforcing the idea of this being a dark place by the use of the bloody textures inside of the room that the Swarmer was hidden in. The Swarmer is obscured by darkness as it rushes toward the player in the room. The player can use the dining room table as a piece of cover to get out of the beast's reach, taking it down with just 2 shotgun shells, ending the encounter and allowing them to move on. Being that the dining room is where people eat, I felt it was only natural to have the room where the food is prepared to be connected. I also knew that I wanted to add the heavy enemy in an isolated environment. As a result, this informed a lot of the decision making for this particular room. Since this enemy had a lot of health and a high damage close range attack, I made one large piece of cover for the player to circle around, as well as a small room for them to fall back to and lead the enemy down should they come in during its patrol route. The cover of this room is a large glass casing that houses the super chain gun. I wanted to give the player a choice here of losing their cover as a result of gaining a more powerful weapon. This also gives them the opportunity to test out their new toy against the hardest enemy in the level. Once the enemy is dead, the player needs to grab a key at the end of the room. If they move either fast enough or slow enough, they can grab the key and avoid the trap that I have set. This is where they are introduced to the mossy contrast between the pristine wallpaper and marble of this mansion and its hidden passageways. Down this hallway, the player encounters 4 copies of the Swarmer enemy. They can use any weapon at their disposal, but since they just got the nail gun, they're more inclined to use it. One of the things that I had implemented was a secret in this room. The button on the opposite side of the cover that the player originally had is similar to the design of that was used in order to remove the cover for the player to acquire the super nail gun. This is also on the opposite side of where they emerge from the grease trap section, allowing them to push the button and show them immediately what secret door was opened. This encounter ends when the player interacts with the freezer door and acquires the ballroom key. The ballroom has 2 real defining features that differentiate it from the previous rooms. The first being the piano, and the second is the bookcase. This is the first room in the manor that includes a bookcase in it. However, it is not the only time that they will be seen in this level. Inside this room is a piece of armor and a key with the intent of drawing the player in. This is also where I introduce the night enemy. 2 of them come out of their hidden view and rush to attack the player. The player can use the tables in the room to keep the enemies away from them for a short time, and attack them with any one of the weapons that they have acquired so far. Defeating the knights and claiming the key will grant them access to the study. The study houses the books that the Hateforge family used to study the dark arts. Naturally, it would be heavily guarded and house the keys to gain access to the master bedroom. The player rushes in, seeing the key and more ammo for their weapons. The nails have been expended in a room leading into the study, as there is a knight that's already present and an ogre that will appear when the player picks up the key to open the study door. Once they use the study key, the room appears empty, with some bookshelves that are hiding enemies that the player can't see. The player rushes in and is ambushed by 3 knights. The bookshelves offer the player options to create more paths for them to hide from the melee rushing enemies. Once the player picks up the key in this room, a wizard will spawn in, as well as 2 swarmers. The intended effect being that wizards can summon more enemies to assist them in battle. The bookshelves are tall enough so that the player can hide from the damage. Once the player claims the key, there is a hidden area that they can explore by pushing a button on the side. This reveals a hidden passage behind the bookcase, and going through this passage gives the player an additional health pack, night enemy encounter, and armor, with the hidden passage ending in the freezer. The bedroom in terms of encounters is just as simple as the kitchens. However, it lacks the spacing that the previous encounter did, as well as the cover, making the player dip and dive to fight the heavy enemy. In this room, I also give the player a super shotgun and some more ammo for the other weapons that they have aside from the lightning gun. They pick up the final key and head to the only room left, the Undercroft. Thank you very much for watching, and the link to try the map for yourself is in the description below.